So they say the camera adds £6. How many cameras have they got on me?
Well, you need to keep your arms back a bit. That's
Trust out, arms back, fine. I'm probably not even square, but it doesn't matter.
Put my chubby arms a little bit out of the shot.
So, Rochelle, what are we thinking then? So,
well, the women's tour starts today.
Okay.
Very, very exciting. It's a big race, obviously for my team. A lot of pressure being a British team.
You've got a team.
Yeah, a few athletes. 17. Can you imagine having 17 children?
17 children.
They're not children.
No, they're not children.
They're not children.
I bet they're amazing to work with.
Yes, they give me a lot of pleasure. A lot of headaches. A lot of pleasure as well.
But it's all Britain. You've got the British team, so you've got one of, if not the best World Tour teams, but being British as well. Heading into the Tour of Britain today, what do you think?
Well, it's so open, isn't it? I think it's a big target for all of the teams, all of the athletes, because the way this race is run is very professional. It's got great hotels, it's got great courses, everything's been thought of. However, we watched the press conference last night.
Of course, yeah. So for those of you who haven't seen it, on Facebook Live there was a press conference. Mick Bennett and was it 5 or 6? Or was it 5.5 riders? I think one of the riders was kind of like half on screen, half off screen, and she was probably the best looking one. So maybe that's why they ditched her out of the screen.
It was very confusing, wasn't it? So they invited 6 athletes up onto. Did we say it was 5 or 5 and a bit? Yeah,
5 and a bit, 5.5.
Athletes. And the athlete who won last year in phenomenal style, solo breakaway, won the tour. Probably one of the most sought after females in cycling, with the highest salary and value because she is the full package. She can't sprint, but she's very likeable, she's very friendly, she's warm, she's a massive talent, great teammate, great personality. And she was cut out of the shot where the camera was on the athletes that was sitting up on the stage being asked questions. Very bizarre.
That's mad. So just to tell you guys, those of you who are watching, we're going to be basically reviewing what's going on out there in cycling. Men's cycling, women's cycling, kids cycling, cockroach cycling, whoever's going to be cycling, we're going to be talking about it. We're based here in Mallorca, mainly in Puerto Palenza, various different locations, and Rochelle and I are then going to basically talk about what we think. So whether you agree, whether you disagree, we don't really care, but we're going to talk
We're just
anyway.
going to tell you our thoughts. And we had some thoughts on the press conference. That was one of them. Kasia Nieuwendomme, the rider of the moment, and she was cut out of the shot where the camera. So maybe there's something we don't know about broadcasting because we're doing from our iPhone here. But you would think the cameraman can see the shot, and you'd think it would be just a matter of either taking a step back, or we saw there was...
Or maybe looking at that little viewfinder and saying, hey, we haven't got all of these superb athletes in view. Let's move the camera. Maybe that's too easy, I don't know.
We don't know. That Kasia Nieuwendomme was cut out of the shot that we were watching. Perhaps it was our iPhone device we're watching it on.
Maybe here on the island we don't get viewing of all of the picture. I don't know, maybe it's different. Anyway, so we're just talking about what makes a good press conference, what we think. Obviously we want women's cycling to develop, so too in every other aspect of cycling. But let's get the basics right, okay? The press conference yesterday, hit me with what you think went well and what maybe could need improving.
Well, it's something I've always thought about press conferences that's very uncomfortable, is that the athletes are sitting up in view on stage and their questions are directed at one person. So
the rest do this.
The rest sit there and they look around like this, and perhaps if it was for a broadcast or viewers that are not there, it would be better to focus in on that one person answering the question, so you don't see someone else going, waiting for my question. Oh, I wonder what they're going to ask me. I wonder how I would have answered that question.
I do like the catalogue poses they do. They are pretty good. Oh, it's my question. I'm up. Let's look really cool.
So it's uncomfortable for the athletes, I think, being sat up there and just, everybody's watching them, whether it's on the computer, on the phone, on the television, or sitting.
Totally agree with you there. Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is, but it's an uncomfortable situation and it doesn't look professional.
And maybe as well, the type of athletes we've got, they're not used to being on film, being on camera. So maybe they need either, not necessarily more training, because that sounds patronising as, but maybe doing a different way. It's a bit more interactive. I know when I've been at races before, and they will have each star athlete with a group of press talking to them, which then gives them a little bit more confidence, and then that gets aired, and then other people get to ask questions, and breaks down that barrier of that long desk, and they're all sitting there looking and wondering what's going to happen next.
Maybe it's not necessary to have that desk there, because the press conference, what we didn't see, what you and I were watching on the live coverage on the internet, was that after they do that and they leave the desk, they are then whisked off to have one-on-ones with all the journalists.
That's way better.
And media.
And I mean,
that's great. But
yeah.
we didn't see that. We just saw a few athletes sitting at a desk going, what is my question going to be?
And also, it hit a massive dizzy height of 36 live viewers.
So watch it. It's up to us, I guess, everyone that's involved in cycling, to promote these things. I had to search very hard, and by the time that I found the link to I'm not a very big Facebook user, but once I found the link to the Facebook page, I was too busy watching it to be tweeting, hey, jump on.
Of course. And this is the thing, it's the chicken and egg. What came first? The press conference, the race? You know, we've got to have live footage to increase participation, to increase viewing figures, to increase sponsorship. It all goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I mean, one thing we want to try to do is see everyone's perspective, and it's very possible that the organisers who held that press conference didn't want a huge viewing because it's an exclusive opportunity for a select amount of media. However, once...
At this level, though, do they need to be so select? I don't think so.
It's, I think if you have a press conference and you actually do put it out live on the internet, then, you know, let's make it more interesting. But let's talk about the athletes. I'm a bit biased because one of my athletes was up there, but who would you feel answered the questions?
Probably, to be fair, Lisa did well, she engaged well, Chantel Black as well, she sat there looking and listening whilst looking, if that makes sense. So rather than doing the whole scared bunny and headlamps, she actually looked, talked, nodded, agreed. And then when it came to her questioning, she was good.
I agree, those two have so much experience with media and they were fantastic. But Cecile was
very good, yeah.
Because she's young, you know, she's
quick to answer.
To the limelight.
She was quick to answer, and also she engaged well as well. And I mean, I've met her on various occasions. She's a really cool girl too. Very innovative with what she's doing too. She's really putting Cervelo and her team on the map, which is really cool. Not that I'm biased towards them either. But yeah, it just kind of shows that grab the opportunity when you can. If you're put in that position, you kind of need to make the most of it. Big up your sponsors. Really relate to your team. I think one of the questions was something like, who is the best rider here? Now they're not going to say someone else because then that's going to put down their team on it.
Difficult questions. one that I thought was very, very difficult to answer, and I think it was directed at Lisa Brenower, who rides for Wiggle High Five, so I was paying attention. She was asked, if you could have your dream team of supporters in your team here at the Women's Tour, which athletes would there be? Now, think about the position that puts her in. She's about to line up for the biggest target of her season with her teammates she wants right by her side to get the absolute maximum out of every one of those individuals.
And then she says Chantel Black.
And, you know, how would her teammates back at the hotel feel if she sits there and says, I'd love to be lining up with Chantel Black and, you know, Cecile, and it's just not... You need to think about the questions that you ask. And
I think that goes back to in all sports, you know, not just women's cycling. The questioning technique is hard. I've been there. I've had to put a microphone in front of the likes of Peter Sagan, and you do get nervous. But if we get good questioning, we get good answers. Then we also get more information. We get a bit more of an insight into what's going on, and you know, it kind of gives a bigger picture of the excitement of the race. So the Tour of Britain is huge. It's absolutely amazing.
And those athletes didn't have an atmosphere where they felt excited to give us that excitement. They'll go back to their rooms and they'll be nervous and excited, but in that situation they look uncomfortable.
You maybe want to put your glasses up. No, she's got enough pairs of those, it's alright. Yeah, no, totally. You've got to basically work all of those things, but also be natural, and that's really difficult. It's a hard thing to do. I guess it comes with age, maturity, but also wanting to do well for your team, for your sponsors, and there's a lot to think about, and that pressure on the athlete is hard. But the likes of other athletes, Marianne Vos is very good at it, various media trained riders, but it's kind of like, come on guys, let's help each other out. You know, don't rely on the cyclists to give you all the information. Let's give the questioning good to get the actual content back.
Absolutely, and I think some more education for the athletes on what the people actually want to hear, and then you need to find a balance between what you want to say, what people would like to know and hear. And in this case, there was a question about the importance of this tour, and it was re-asked by the person who was asking the question.
Within the same question, yeah,
three or four different ways, which made me feel, okay, what they want is an answer to promote specific people who are supporting this race.
Yeah, of course. So they need that
the
answer.
local towns, and the athletes are not aware of that. So they're there saying, well, you know, it's wouldn't call it one of the hilliest races, and they don't know what answer to give because they don't know what the person asking the question is trying to get.
Yeah, it's
so
a tough one.
That was uncomfortable. I felt that was uncomfortable, but that's all comes down to training. I don't know, you don't want to dress rehearse a press conference, but do you know what I think would be really cool?
What's that?
If each of those athletes could have asked another athlete a question.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It would have got more of a true answer, maybe some honest reflection. Yeah, no, that's a good one.
And the people who we want to engage in watching our sport, they are very curious to know the little details.
No.
About, do you wear an undershirt, do you not? What pressure do you use in your tyres? Okay, that's a general question, but you know, there's so much discussion that goes on about what gear ratios we're going to use.
Maybe this could be part of our future shows. Who knows? This.
But I think that could have just. I mean, the press conference is about.
That's not press conference
promoting
stuff, though.
the
To
race.
be fair.
Yeah, that's other stuff. So we've talked about questions. The presenter could probably be a little bit better rehearsed on, and even just give a heads up. Do you mind if we talk about, you know, your ambitions for later in the season or whatever, just to have a general conversation before you go up?
It was very rigid, very not particularly relaxed, so no, definitely. What are you thinking of the Tour of Britain, just to wrap up then? Obviously we've got starts today. Thoughts on it?
From the press conference I watched last night, I think Lisa Brenower, she's informed you're only as good as your last race, which you won. She just beamed confidence to me, so I think she'll be hard to beat. I'm not saying that
But without looking at the actual riders, what do you think of the actual tour? The stages, the towns it goes through, putting the Tour of Britain on the map?
Look, for me, I think it's perfect. I think we give a little bit of criticism to the press conference, but that's not because it's not great. It's because we want it to be phenomenal, you know, because every aspect of the race is actually everything's been thought of. It's a great, fantastic race. The athletes really do love the attention that they get from the media and a chance to show themselves on the stage. Live TV coverage is something that I'd like to see with the race.
I think actually going down to each start and finishing the race as well, the crowds that come down, the
That's
local
amazing.
schools, it's brilliant. I mean, I'm really biased, it's back in my home country. Obviously we're not there at the moment because it's probably sunnier there maybe, I don't know.
Well, I'm actually flying off to Geneva in a minute, so I think my taxi's here.
We'll wrap it up for now. So that's it for now. That's show number 1. Hopefully you can join us again for our next little chat about the Women's Tour of Britain and anything else that comes up. For now though, adios.
Bye.